from Wisdomseed. We are into awareness about corporate mental wellness, and that has been a really, really critical competency that is required by today's leader. And I think our guest today, Rushali Raut, really understand in depth with her background in psychology, and she brings in a unique perspective of HR, wherein she has prioritized well-being of employee at the most top part of it. So Rushali has actually more than just an HR professional. She has been an author, a tireless advocate of mental health within workplaces. Her dedication has caught the attention of media outlet like Doordarshan and All India Radio, which has prepared her to inspire us to discuss an important point of empathy in leadership and how to create a work environment where mental health matters. So Rushali has already been talking about it in various blogs. She is an author of a Marathi language driven book, which is called as Kamgaranche Mansik Swasthya. So that is one book that is out there. And she has been actively promoting mental wellness for workers within all spheres of India. And especially, she has taken this particular initiative to make it as a local kind of a voice, which will be talking about local language into Maharashtrian Marathi. So she has been the spearheading person in that particular area. So today we have Dr. Raut with us. So she would be talking about a lot of facets which are going to make us understand what are the mental wellness, different spectrums that are there into mental wellness, because we only know about stress management and certain programs that are there into wellness of employees. But the entire spectrum is totally different. There are different nuances into mental wellness when it comes to mental wellness. So I think over to you, Rushali. We would be just talking about how you have got into this particular field. What was your first inspiration that has led you in this particular field of mental wellness for employees? So over to you.
Thank you, Abhijit, for giving me the opportunity to share my experience and my thoughts about this particular topic, mental health in the workplace. So I guess you know so the introduction given by you was up to the mark. I think you have done justice to whatever I have done so far, and I think you have mastery over English language, especially the way you have created or fit that content into few lines. It was great. So thank you for
Thank you
that
so much.
also.
Yeah.
So before I begin my discussion over mental health and whatever I have been doing so far, I would like to explain few terminologies because you come from HR
Mm-hmm.
background, and
Yes.
the people who are listening to this podcast are mostly from HR or maybe labor, labor side,
Right.
working in labor profession, labor
Right.
laws or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So mental health is not madness. That is the first thing I would like to say. Mental health
Right.
is not being completely out of balance. It is not schizophrenia, it is not bipolar disorder. It is something
Mm-hmm.
which we experience in terms of mood changes. Okay, so whatever we are going to discuss today are the mental health challenges. They are mood disorders, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
depression, and of course stress. And
Mm-hmm.
that can so these conditions, they are mood disorders. So there are certain chemical changes in our brain that
Mm-hmm.
happens because of the environment we work in, because I'm talking about workplace. So environment we work in, the kind of work we do, the kind of job profiles we have, the kind of work life balance we have, all these external factors, they impact our biological functioning, that
Right.
that may disturb our sleep, that may disturb our digestive system, that may disturb our relationship. We become irritable, we become annoying, and we end up troubling other people. We cannot control our impulses. So though these behavioral changes, they are mental health challenges that
Mhm.
most of us, like average bell curve, we can say 68% public, they go through daily. And because
Right.
of the COVID, which was a trauma,
Mhm.
so
Right.
COVID had impacted each of us. Even if they were doing well in COVID, they had secure job, they had no health issues. They
Mhm.
I mean, people who had no health issues, people who didn't lose anyone, I mean, they were doing
Mhm.
well, but still they
Mhm.
all lived under the fear of death and
Mhm.
uncertainty. That has impacted our brain, in a very bad manner. And that is
Right.
how we are seeing lot of issues. In fact, the
Mhm.
situation is very dangerous now. Whenever I get a
Right.
call from any company to conduct a session on well-being or wellness, I know, generally come to know that there is a suicidal attempt or a
Right.
suicide happened, unfortunately. And this is
Mhm.
applicable for big companies also, small companies also. So again, we are coming to a term called trauma. So trauma is
Mhm.
any psychological injury or any
Mhm.
event that has
Mhm.
impacted our balance.
Mhm.
And when we experience a trauma, our bodily
Mhm.
chemistry changes. We go into
Mhm.
survival mode. We don't
Right.
behave normally. Our
Mhm.
all the, or whatever available resources we have, they are all focused on the survival part. So survival is breathing.
Right.
um, you know
Mhm.
um, say, you can say, basically to save ourselves from dying. So that
Right.
is
Right.
because trauma is a threat to our body. And
Mhm.
our body does not discriminate between the physical threat, like a tiger may be in front of us, or a psychological threat,
Right.
like a bad work culture,
Mhm.
where there
Right.
is always a hanging sword, uh, or people are not cooperative, your manager
Right.
is too pushy, and our
Mhm.
body stays in fear. And when there is a fear, there is
Right.
no safety.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
all those
Right.
stress hormones start secreting.
Mhm.
Blood pressure
Mhm.
rises, sugar in our blood rises, because body prepare itself for fight or flight
Right.
or freeze. Basically
Right.
fight or
Or
flight,
freeze.
those
Mhm.
are two things. So most of us
Right.
are experiencing post traumatic stress disorder. That trauma has happened,
Mhm.
but it
Mm.
effects are still lingering, because
Right.
nobody knows what is trauma. Mostly nobody knows what is trauma in India. And
Mm.
mostly people do not understand the effect of trauma on their body. And that's why
Right.
many of my friends from corporate world, they are,
Mhm.
I mean, they called me and they asked me, Roshali, you have gone through COVID, and you had some issues
Mhm.
with health. How did you cope up? Because they are all going, they
Mm.
have developed, some of them have developed BP, some of them have developed
Right.
diabetes, or they have high
Mhm.
sugar levels. So these are the symptoms that body has experienced a trauma, and now they are
Mhm.
struggling with so body is now manifesting that
Right.
you need to
Mhm.
go back to your
Mhm.
equilibrium stage. You have experienced
Mhm.
something and you have to work on it. Now
Mm.
this trauma, unresolved trauma, it is
Mhm.
impacting our workplaces, and that's why you
Right.
see burnout is really high.
Right.
So these are few things I wanted to explain. So once we move on with our questions,
Mhm.
people will not be
Right.
confused that what are they discussing, what is
Mhm.
trauma, what is
Right.
burnout,
Mhm.
why people feel
Right.
fear in that way. So
Mhm.
is that okay?
Okay. Great. Yeah, yeah, I think it's fine. I think it was very much well elaborated kind of explanation and in a very easy words. I think most of our audience would be able to correlate with those. One of the question that lingers in my mind is, as a manager or as a colleague, when we are facing this kind of stress situations, or there is a prolonged stress in our team, because there will be certain months in a year or a certain phase in that particular year in which a lot of stress would be there onto certain departments. So are there any kind of warning sign which you have seen as a psychologist or working with organization, which is a kind of a telltale sign that okay, this is what would lead him to a certain kind of burnout? It can be any kind of being isolated from the group, not communicating well, or there is a certain kind of a kind of a difference between his behavior in terms of sharing things, in terms of absenteeism, or in terms of presentism. This is a new thing that we talked about, presentism, that people are there physically but they are not engaged. So we have seen those particular elements. So are there any kind of telltale signs which you can identify by just interacting with the person? So any kind of tips that you can give to the managers who are handling those kind of teams?
Okay, so before I answer this question, let me give you some background about my journey. Uh, Otherwise,
Yeah.
people will not understand, and maybe they will not find
Mm-hmm.
my answers authentic. So my journey as a HR starts in 2006, where I started working with a company called Sid Infotech, one of the best organizations back then in 2006 as an IT recruiter. I have a degree in mathematics,
Right.
BSc Physics, Chemistry, Mathematics, and I have PG, post graduation in Industrial Organizational Psychology. So
Okay.
I started
Right.
working as an IT recruiter. I work, as a HR for 8.5 years, and meantime, like
Mm-hmm.
after 4 or 5 years of my career, I realized that this is not going to work for me. There were some personal reasons also for a long time, so I should switch to academics, because my family has a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who PhD holders, and a lot of people who are in government job.
Okay.
So I thought I
Okay.
should be more comfortable doing that kind of a thing. So I started doing my
Mm-hmm.
doctoral degree in 2010, and my topic
Right.
of research was occupational stress, subjective well-being, and
Mm-hmm.
emotional competence among IT professionals. This was
Great.
suggested by my
Mm-hmm.
um, guide, PhD guide, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Rubina Ansari, because
Mm-hmm.
I was,
Mm-hmm.
younger, I would say, compared to now, and was
Mm-hmm.
inexperienced. But she told me that since you're working with, already working with IT industry, and as a HR,
Right.
so you should leverage these what are the advantages you have. I said
Right.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I started working on that topic, and gradually, with my
Mm-hmm.
own personal experience and experience of handling other people as a HR, it actually led me to lot of new discoveries. Like you said, presentism. So presentism is something I have already written in my PhD. That people come to work and they don't,
Mm-hmm.
perform the way
Mm-hmm.
they should. They just do time
Mm-hmm.
pass basically. So
Right.
in 2014, I completed
Mm.
my doctoral degree. I submitted the thesis, and I was looking for something, in academics or something based on my doctoral degree. But fortunately, I was hired by one of the business groups in Siemens PLM, Siemens Industry Software,
Right. Mm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
worked there for 4.5 years. It was a very different role because it was created specially based on my doctoral experience, and I had a chance of working, of course, with the leadership development, employee engagement. I was a kind of a organizational behavior specialist there, and I
Mm-hmm.
managed to get a funding, or a grant from their US office for 4 consecutive years. And I ran
Okay.
well-being
Mm-hmm.
program, like what I wrote in my
All right.
PhD, for 4 years. And back
Mm-hmm.
then it was quite ahead of time, because I was inviting physiotherapists in the office. I was myself conducting some sessions on sleep and productivity, emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
and we used to also invite clinical
Right.
psychologists. A lot of
Mm.
CSR activities I did because of for
Mm.
social well-being part. So it was quite
Mm-hmm.
elaborative experience. We used to conduct a stress survey every
Mm-hmm.
year, and based on stress survey, like psychometric assessment.
Mhm.
Based on that, we used to provide intervention to the team, well-being intervention, like
Right.
whether they are having
Right.
stress with overload, are they not clear about their roles, are they not satisfied with their team, and
Mhm.
then we used to provide intervention.
Mhm.
So that was my role in Siemens.
Mhm.
After Siemens, of course, I wanted
Right.
to shift abroad because there was no scope as such for my
Mhm.
work in India then, back then, before COVID. But then COVID
Mhm.
came, and COVID has changed a lot of things in my personal
Mhm.
life. So I had to stay back in India. And meanwhile, I started writing. I
Mhm.
used to write a lot in English, but somehow I started writing in Marathi because one of my actually journalist friends from Maharashtra, he advised me you should write in Marathi, and because he used to read my
Mhm.
WhatsApp forward and all. So that was picked up by audience because it was 2020 and people were at home, people were completely confused, they were under fear. And that's how my
Right.
first book came in 2021, Kamgaranche Manasik Arogya.
Mhm.
It is about
Mhm.
the psychological side effects of any job. So we know under occupational hazards
Right.
there are physiological side
Mhm.
effects. Whatever we do,
Very true.
there is a wear and
Mhm.
tear of our body. But when we go
Right.
to work, there is a wear and
Mhm.
tear of mind also.
Right.
So we use lot of emotions when we go to work, and that impacts our body, and that is what
Right.
I have focused majorly on that part in my book. Also, based on my HR
Mhm.
experiences, I have written about the HR practices, which frankly people may not like it, but they are not as up to the mark,
Mhm.
and
Right.
they kind of they have not evolved. I mean, they are very so what I feel that they should make use of organizational psychology, cognitive psychology, brain health and everything, that
Mhm. Mhm.
people
Mhm.
like me who are there to help as a back end. So
Right.
HR
Right.
fraternity should use make of the skills what we have, and make good
Mhm.
changes in the workplaces. So I
Right.
was in a long COVID, so I was in a job, and I was also doing all these
Mhm.
awareness session about psychological safety in the workplace. I
Right.
was writing a lot, but then COVID hit me, and it took a toll on my health. So I had to take a break
Mhm.
almost for 1 year, and even after 1 year I was struggling with the
Mhm.
energy level. So fortunately, one of my
Right.
friends, he referred me to this
Mhm.
particular assignment which I'm currently into. And that assignment is something,
Right.
I have realized that if you have a good team, and if you have a good people
Mhm.
who are who have trust in you, who give you
Mhm.
space, and who
Mhm.
back you up in your up and downs, then I think you can do
Right.
well. So this assignment
Mhm.
has really given back my confidence. I'm so thankful to my
Mhm.
friend who has referred me,
Right.
and I'm also thankful to my current team, especially the project manager I have, and the lead
Right.
current head of
Mhm.
the she's a lady,
Mhm.
and the way she has, I mean, I'm a PhD holder, so you know so working on such assignment, maybe
Mhm.
people find it very downgrading that I'm a PhD holder, why should I
Right.
work on something which is
Right.
part
Mhm.
time or something like that. But this team has given back me my confidence, so I want to say thank you to them online.
Great.
So
Great.
taking this chance to say
Mhm.
thank you to my friend and
Mhm.
the team I am working with, because I
Mhm.
don't know what would have happened if I didn't get this chance, the
Right.
kind of
So I
assignment.
just want to, yeah, I think this is very important, Rushali, because what happens, as you said previously, that there's supposed to be, you are fortunate enough to take that particular break. And after like 10 to 15 years of, getting into corporate, a person is really actually extracted out of his entire vitality, what I feel like. Vitality in terms of your energy, vitality in terms of your mental health, vitality in terms of how you operate as a human being. So that is one of the most crucial thing. And a person who is going to hire a manager or who has been into industry for 12 years, I think there has to be one consideration, what I feel like as an HR as well, because I have also gone through that particular phase wherein you can feel the burnout. when you are at that particular, edge of, once you are into burnout, once you are into that particular realm where you feel like nothing matters now, nothing make any sense. You have that kind of a suicidal kind of an part where you see yourself as a purposeless puppet into the corporate world, and you feel like thrown here and there, and you have no utility as such as a human being. So what was my proposal at that point of time, or discussion that was there, that anybody who has taken a break, I'm not talking about break out of your family emergency, out of your family obligations, but break purely in terms of revitalizing your entire beings. So I have seen one of my manager was there. I think one of the leadership who I had time to talk with. Just not able to. I just remember the first name, Preeti, I guess. And she had take 1 year of spiritual break from her 15 years of entire serving into corporate. And I asked her what was the need of that. She told me that that was her word, that I felt like a puppet in that particular corporate and didn't want to be, boiled down to one only element or clog in that system, which would only utilize me and make me only a part of a machine rather than a human being. So somewhere this particular dry approach of corporate, which is happening right now and which is very prevalent in most of the environment. And when you said that HR needs to evolve, I think everybody needs to evolve, because everybody collectively make this environment, the employee, the management, the HR, because it's a collective environment that we make. Once we are equipped with that with particular knowledge, wherein expert like you come in picture, who can actually emphasize on those particular competencies, as you have already said about there are competencies which are required by the leaders. So in that scenario, you have to make sure that are those competency embedded them into the programs beforehand itself, because it has to be very much preventive than the curative. So that is what I felt like. One is making them, it's making a new normal that person can take a professional break or a spiritual break in his career, that's supposed to be accepted by the HR. Secondly, the environment that is there, which is going to facilitate entire growth of a human being rather than just bringing down to a small unit or a clog in that system. So that one, and knowledge is also has to be passed down. But when it comes to the actual practicality and implementation, that is my question to you. What do you think, like how work culture or micromanaging affects an employee in that particular environment? That is my question, because you have worked, you have seen both sides. You have been in HR, you have been the third person who is looking at the entire effect cycle of how organizational culture affects on one employee. So I think you are the right person who can make sure that, okay, this is what are the elements that I feel, this is the gap, and how you're going to breach that gap. So what is your outlook on that?
So this is thank you for asking very clearly, because I don't want to sugarcoat things. uh,
Mm-hmm.
we are still very very backward in terms of taking a break from the work. My
Right.
parents were both in state government job, and even they had
Mm-hmm.
this uh, privilege that, if they are taking a course and if they are doing something for upgradation, there was a provision. But what I have
Mm-hmm.
seen in IT, because I have predominantly worked with IT industry, what I have seen that
Right.
you should,
Right.
slogging is something that is rewarded. And how I am
Mm.
cool by working 18 hours a day, how I
Right.
am. So I have seen people, those who never utilize their leaves. They never travel,
Mm.
or once in a
Right.
5 year they travel. They work
Mm.
endlessly. I don't understand what kind of work we do. And India is not famous like Japan for its
Right.
sincerity or quality, especially quality. Not even like Germany, not
Mm-hmm.
like America, who
Mm.
are the number one in
Mm-hmm.
many things. So what
Mm.
we do in those 18 hours,
Mm-hmm.
people, they claim that they work for 18 hours per day. And there was a recent debate over 70 hours per week
Right.
work. What kind of
Yes.
productivity they expect? And I never, I am not that kind of a person who will ask another person to work, for 18 hours or even 10 hours a day. If you do
Right.
work smartly, if you follow the
Mm-hmm.
rules, which are typical brain health, that brain related rules, then you can
Right.
finish the work in 4 to 5 hours with.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
but people have egos, and our work culture in that sense, it's really bad.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why 69% of people, workforce in India is experiencing burnout at this time. This is the current ratio,
Burnout. Right.
very
Right.
latest. And
Right.
that's why changing our outlook towards work, and work
Mm-hmm.
doesn't define us.
Mm-hmm.
It never defined me. I mean, I have a
Right.
break for my PhD also, then Siemens hired me. Then
Mm-hmm.
it's been like
Mm-hmm.
almost 2 years now, I am not in a full-time job. But
Right.
we should also understand that as a PhD holder can also do many things. I can also work as a faculty, I mean visiting faculty. I
Faculty.
can
Right.
do some research
Mm-hmm.
project which can pay me really well. I can do,
Right.
if I write an article, if I get 5,000 to 10,000 rupees per article, I would prefer to do
Mm-hmm.
that, instead of slogging myself 10 hours, 15 hours traveling
Mm-hmm.
to say
Mm-hmm.
Hinjewadi or Kharadi.
Right.
So there are
Right.
ways where you
Mm-hmm.
can survive and grow also. But people
Right.
like that glamour in corporate, people like the LinkedIn profile where they have to showcase their companies
Mm-hmm.
and people they are working with. I think it's all about yourself. If work
Right.
defines you, if work is the only priority, if that defines your
Mm.
self-worth, then you will do
Mm.
anything for it. I mean, even if
Right.
I know a recent case in my circle. I won't take a name of
Mm-hmm.
the company. It's one of the
Mm.
biggest telecom companies in India. That fellow
Mm-hmm.
died on the desk, his work desk. He was 37, 38 years old fellow.
Wow.
Of course, that was a case of burnout.
Right.
I know because somebody related to him was in my circle,
Mm-hmm.
and there are so many such cases.
Right.
And that work,
Eh,
because this culture has developed in last, I guess, 20 years with the
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
emergence of IT industry in India, and we have
Right.
adopted this typical US culture of get the things done as soon as possible. And
Right.
it was all in hurry. So hurry, curry, and worry, these are things
Worry.
which are disturbing our balance,
Mm-hmm.
society's balance, I would say. So when we
Mm-hmm.
will start um, you know uh, uh, when we will start
Going back to.
uh,
Mm.
no, considering ourselves as an individual, not as an employee. We are not
Mm-hmm.
employee full time. People
Mm.
consider themselves
Mm.
24/7 employees. And
Mm.
that's why they are more vulnerable to all these insecurities and stress and all those things. If you define your boundaries that I will work for this much time
Mm.
and it doesn't define me, I have my personal life, I
Mm.
have my health, I have my hobbies.
Mm.
And also
Mm.
they can develop a second career like I have in writing.
Right.
So
Right.
whenever if you lose
Mm-hmm.
something, the first job,
Mm-hmm.
they can always have something second, right? Instead of slogging for 18 hours in any organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's
I
up to the
think this has brought up, yeah, individually. Yeah, this has brought up a very
individuals.
interesting point. Yeah, interesting point. I was listening to this podcast by Tanmay Bhatt, and you might be knowing him. He's a good content writer, and he is an AIB founder, which was there. Tanmay Bhatt talked about one of the element that this particular economy right now, it is an and economy. Means it is not about like I am HR and a content creator. I am doctor and a kind of a travel vlogger. I am a engineer and a person who writes blogs or who writes books for kids. So now this particular, when you said that definitely we're supposed to have then another stream, which is all of it, and why it is now why it is important because the technology and the environment itself let you do those particular alternative in your careers. You can have that alternative part where you can ease out or where you can actually there would be outlet of creativity because I think most of the stress that built up is only because of the deficiency of creativity and expression that is there in your entire days of work. It can happen through anything. It doesn't have to be your economic stream. It doesn't have to be anything that would bring you money, but at least it can bring joy or peace. So I think that is
True.
something that everybody has to think and make a kind of a commitment that at least half an hour every day, if I come back and I do something that I love, it can
Mm,
be anything. It
mm,
can be anything, because I started doing podcast after like 14 years into the industry. So it is like a kind of a late kind of the beginning. But I think it makes a kind of a different kind of space, a mental space for you, where you think about not about your worries, not about your stress, but think about what would be the next topic for podcast. So that is something that challenges my thinking, and it actually makes my problems and stress secondary, and primary becomes my hobby. So I think these are some kind of lifestyle changes that a person can do, and I think it has to be embedded in the education system itself. It has to
yes.
be normalized by and encouraged by the system that we are working in, because it should not be something that has to be looked down onto. That and most of the time, what happens? The we are so sensitive to society, what people will say, that particular emotion that is there,
Mm,
and definitely I was also crippled with that. Okay, how you can come over it? I would say do it. you know the one thing that goes, a mantra that goes with me is like, your first podcast, your first blog, your first video, your first writing would be the worst of all. Be ready to at least 50 podcasts you do, you will be worst at that. But the 50th podcast that you will do, that will make you a different person. So people who are not starting right now, I think people who are looking for a certain kind of motivation out of this podcast, I would say them that at least start doing it. At least start doing podcast and don't publish it. If you're so concerned about public image and what people will say, just don't publish it. Put it into your mobile phone, watch it, learn about it, create certain things. Don't make it public. Keep it for your own self itself. So I think the expression part is something that is
mm,
missing a lot. When we come to career, it is like we identify ourselves so much with our professions that the
mm,
self identity is totally lost.
huh,
And it is this is actually outcome of 18 hours of logging into that particular system. It is not like you're not taking breaks,
mm,
you're not going on quest where you can find what is your actual true purpose. When
true.
this would be become a spiritual thing, but I think that is required. That is something that is required to at least get out of this particular rut and the sphere that we are working in. So it is a very interesting insight, Roshali, that you have bring in, because an alternative path, as you said, that why I'm able to, because you have also gone through trauma. Why you are able to survive in that particular trauma is because of you have found a way, an outlet for a creativity
Mm,
that has actually saved you, and the support system was there.
mm,
I think people who are not fortunate enough to get that support system, try and make an effort that would
mm,
actually gives you a kind of a way. I think again I will give an example of Tanmay Bhatt itself, because he was talking about when they had initiated writing script for AIB, uh, how they were able to tap in, Ranbir Kapoor and Arjun Kapoor for their AIB hosting program or roast program. It was just because they were writing on Twitter, left, right, center. And Twitter is such a kind of an undimensional kind of an, there is a unidimensional, or not unidimensional, it is a multidimensional kind of an propagation that happens, because you never know which kind of article, which kind of post will hit somebody in a different way, and he would follow you, he will come back to you, and he will ask you. And I think you would be agreeing to this particular fact. Once you started writing and putting those blogs into WhatsApp group, people would have come to you and they would have talked to you. I can give my example with this particular. The last podcast has actually drawn our conversation, right?
yes.
The last podcast. So I
Yes.
think there are certain kind of ways that we can invent, which can be a part of that. There are a lot of people that are there. We just have to reach out. I think that is one thing. So I think that was one of the biggest point that you have made over here, and it is very important that what would be an and to your status that is there, to your designation that is there. What is an and? So anybody who is frustrated right now, who are on the brim of that particular age, start and search what is the and for you. So great. Okay.
Okay. So,
Hmm.
wellness in the workplace is something which is not, a side dish.
Hmm.
It's not a side
Right.
dish. It is not
Mm.
something which is a CSR activity also. Uh,
Very
people,
true.
many people perceive it as a CSR activity. It is not. It is something related to the productivity of the organization, because if the brains of the employees are not functioning well, and they don't function
Right.
well because if they have anxiety, depression, or stress, in all the three
Mm.
conditions,
Mm.
what will happen? People will lose their sleep, people will have their bodies in a very
Mm.
um, uh, in a survival mode, and again the diabetes, BP, the digestive system, all these things will go in a negative manner. um, so this will impact basically depression, anxiety, and stress. They impact the cognitive abilities, like
Mm.
memory. First of all, memory is the most I would say impacted area when person is
So,
stressed out.
yeah, sorry to interrupt, Rushali, but I would like to have one example which you have set in Siemens, because I think 3 years you have been with Siemens when you were like working into organizational development, OD.
Mm,
So what kind of intervention that you have placed, or what kind of gaps? I will talk about what were the gaps, or what was the entire philosophy of Siemens in order to make those particular incremental changes, not a bigger change, but an incremental change. Let's take example of, for example, of this assembly line that is there, and there is no seating area for employees who are there into an assembly line. Now, because of that particular physical stress, I mean, I'm just giving an example. So, are there any kind of examples, like for example, even the illumination or the light or the seating area, ergonomics of the entire, office, also affect on the mental health of the
mm,
person who is working there. Even the kind of lights, if the illumination is not appropriate, and that is very much well mentioned into our Factories Act, that how much illumination has to be there onto workflows, how much of illumination or how the circulation of air has to be there. Even direct sunlight, it is a very basic thing.
mm,
How even staying inside the office for 8 hours and then going back into evening where you are not able to expose to sunlight, not in the morning and not even the evening. So I think it is like a prolonged years of non-exposure to sunlight, how it diversely affect. So were
mm.
there any kind of designer changes? Were there any kind of office cubicle ergonomics designs, which can be a gold standards, which you approve as a psychologist, organizational psychologist, which would actually help, at least to start with, for organizations? So that is one thing that I want to.
So I have worked with Siemens Industry Software, which is a software
Mm-hmm.
organization of Siemens AG. So I did not work
Mm-hmm.
for any kind of a factory setup of Siemens. I
Right.
work
Right.
with software,
The corporate
software
one.
company
Right.
of Siemens, Siemens
Mm.
PLM, Product Lifecycle Management. So
Right.
my interventions were in terms of stress survey, and based
Mm-hmm.
on stress surveys result, we used to provide basically, so in terms of infrastructure and even the work life balance, Siemens is a great company.
Mm-hmm.
Being a European company, and Siemens has a very good culture in terms of
Mm.
um, uh, basically the working hours, the communication part, and the processes. So they were really good. So what where
Mm.
I provided intervention was basically awareness part, that there are side effects of like you said, if you're not going out of out in sunlight and for
Mm.
very long period. So these were
Mm.
certain educational programs I started to work
Mm.
on initially.
Right.
After that we move on, like in the next year we move on to a slightly different things, like how to manage the stress, how to build your emotional intelligence, and
Mm-hmm.
even how to tackle the things like depression and anxiety. So I
Mm-hmm.
think these are a few things, like if I go and explain the program in in detail. Just a moment. There is something coming on my computer screen which is about our recording. So
Mm.
let me check that, because
All right.
otherwise we will lose our first part.
Yeah, yeah. No issue. I think it is converting the audio.
Yes.
It
Okay.
might be that,
So
right?
okay. No,
It
that
would,
is
yeah,
about first recording. So
yeah,
interventions
first recording.
where
Okay, we'll just, what we'll do, we'll just pause for a little bit because that would give me a scope of editing. Okay, 1, 2, 3, start. Yeah.
so intervention I provided at Siemens, they were more in terms of the job structure, team
Mm-hmm.
um, dynamics, I would say. And
Mm-hmm.
because there were certain things at prevention level, there were certain things at correction level. So prevention levels, that we provided certain facilities in terms of physical wellness, like they already had a beautiful gym, they already had I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they have a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful yoga hall. So what I did,
Mm-hmm.
that we conducted lot of sessions by physical um, uh,
Mm-hmm.
exercise experts,
Mm-hmm.
who were into
Mm-hmm.
yoga, who were into Pilates, or
Mm-hmm.
who there were a
Mm-hmm.
special program for managers only, for fitness of managers. And
All right.
the major aim of the program was to help employees to take few
Mm-hmm.
steps towards their physical fitness, their emotional
Mm-hmm.
fitness, social fitness,
Mm-hmm.
and also financial
Mm-hmm.
fitness or well-being, we can
Mm-hmm.
say.
Great.
But we can help employees up to a certain extent as a company. So that is what we
Mm-hmm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
once
mm-hmm.
they realize the importance of taking
Mm-hmm.
care of their bodies and how it impacts the
Mm-hmm.
organization as a whole, because there is a statistics given by WHO, that if you invest $1 in employees mental health, specifically mental health, the return on
Gives you
investment is
four,
$4.
$4, right?
So
Great.
if employees
But
are
hmm,
if
sorry.
employees are
Yeah.
better at handling their stress,
Mm-hmm.
better at
Mm-hmm.
managing their emotions, better at maintaining even the weight management
Right.
part, maintaining
Right.
their sleep, daily sleep, having
Right.
a good food. Like I used to provide certain instruction to the pantry and the vendor also,
Right.
time to time. So if I observe something, I
Mm-hmm.
used to tell, because I was associated with one department only. So I had some restriction.
Mm-hmm.
I was not associated with the everyone. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever was there in my area of influence, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
But we
Right.
also used to invite people from other department, or other people
Mm-hmm.
used to join us for our session,
Right.
because
Mm-hmm.
I was well connected within the organization. So and since it was very new to the company, to the employees, that this kind of well-being initiative uh,
Mm-hmm.
at workplace, it was very new. Then I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about 2016, 17, 18. So
Right. Before COVID.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
so whatever we could do at that time, we did. So I think, I
Mm-hmm.
hope I could answer your question well.
Yes, yes. The only thing that, Miss, definitely, these were like
So
before
if you
COVID, but
ask
I
me
think
now,
after COVID.
if you
Yeah.
ask
Now
yes,
that was worst thing.
if
Yeah.
you ask me now, I would definitely have taken a different approach, because that
Uh-huh.
was the period where, now if people are coming to work, my focus would have been majorly into correcting their traumatic experiences, or the
Right.
things that have changed because of the trauma. So I would focus more on clinical part,
Mm-hmm.
where I could provide counseling to
Mm-hmm.
people, one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
counseling, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
emotional management coaching to the people. And of course, some part of light exercise, because when you
Right.
experience trauma, or when your
Mm-hmm.
body is in chronic stress for a very long period, I think this heavy intensity workout are not helpful. We used to do a lot of
Mm-hmm.
marathon also. I used to participate in marathon, 5 meter,
Right.
5 kilometer, 10 kilometer. I used to take my employees also to marathon.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
because of COVID, I think that that has changed a lot, and people have
Right.
developed BP and diabetes. So I would have gone for yoga. I would have gone
Mm-hmm.
for something in slow rhythmic movement. I would have gone for
Mm-hmm.
physiotherapy,
Mm-hmm.
or even I would have suggested the
Mm-hmm.
body massage part. Maybe would have
Mm-hmm.
sponsored the body massage through
Mm-hmm.
company budget. Then I think meditation is something I would have asked my employees, or would have arranged something for them. uh, maybe would have suggested the Vipassana for leadership team,
Right.
3 days, 4 days,
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe something in nature, more time in nature where they can calm down,
Right.
and whatever
Hmm.
corona has done to their body and mind,
Hmm.
we could reduce the intensity of that pain.
So
So
if I want to ask you one question, that what the 2 years of Corona, or even 3 years, if we say about it, so how much of time it would take to inculcate this kind of techniques that we are trying to try to promote right now, to reset the clock that has gone haywire? What is your thought on that? So how long it has to be done? And I know that it won't be a prescription for it, because I think it is some kind of it is as good as brushing your teeth. Every day you have to do that particular mental exercises, because the kind of stress that you are getting into, we have to make a lifestyle changes. That is one question that I want to ask.
mm,
So definitely after this resetting would be like, we have to inculcate that particular part, because it is not only it is better to be prepared. And as you said, that prevention is better than the cure, because a lot of organization would take the initiation of having yogas, Pilates, having that 5 kilometer marathon run, but it would be very seasonal, because I have seen yoga day in that particular month. You will have to have like 4 weeks of yoga, then entire year gone. Then we have sports day coming up. Then we will have that particular 1 month prior to that sport day preparation. Then it is gone. So I think there has to be a certain kind of when we talk about HR and being into HR, we have to see in that a certain KRA has to be attached to a mental wellness of the manager. If your team's mental wellness is going down, the manager has to be asked on that particular part that why the mental wellness is going out, because that is one of the factor that most of the companies are not talking about. When you have a lot of attrition, when you have a lot of quarrels, you have a lot of absenteeism, if you have a lot of people who are getting into addictions,
mm,
we are not talking about only alcohol, even alcoholism on every weekends. If you're suggesting your team, and I've seen team budgets for partying out, and for welfare budget is utilized to go out to the to a restaurant, have drinks and come back. So
mm,
why can't we have any kind of weekends which would be a detox weekends,
mm,
which your team would go to a nature retreat, they would go over there, have meditation, come back. But I think most of the generations that we are there, like Z's and even our generation, I have seen that. I'm not saying that I have been always been advocating mental health at the core of it, but I think now it has been very evident that with the kind of stress and with the kind of limitation of a human stress level absorption that we can see, and we can see how badly it is going to affect. And why I made a particular initiation in getting this particular field is that when we are saying and we are envisioning our India as being the $5 billion or $1 trillion economy, are we going to make it possible with weak minds? Are we going to make it possible with weak bodies? No, it is a straight no. So how much of that $5 trillion economy dream, that is something that has been promoted left, right, center? I'm not talking about any political agenda in that. Even if you want to become the upcoming, developing country or the developed country status, that we are still 70 years of independence and we are still a developing country, it has to happen with the kind of resources that we have, the kind of dynamic population that we have. We are supposed to achieve it in less than that time. China has done it in a very different manner. But I think uh, in last podcast when I was discussing with Patrick, and he was very much it was a kind of a taunt, which I felt like he said that the entire wisdom for peace, mental wellness, mindfulness was developed into Eastern countries. We have Eastern countries wisdom that has been developed, China, India. And now what has happened, the Western countries are learning it and putting into their psychological theories and concept, and they are getting it back to us. So where we have gone wrong, like when you have seen this kind of awareness, when we talk about awareness, I think the awareness has to start on that level. That what are the I'm not saying going back to becoming a saffron person who is utilizing saffron. I think if saffron is like making you calm and peaceful, definitely wear it. But make sure those practices are really making those effects, because I have seen a lot of things are done just for tick marks, like
Hmm.
yoga day done, that is there. So if any kind of HR or any policies, I think a lot of HR and decision makers are listening to this podcast. Are we doing any kind of concrete policies? Because I know the man hour would be involved into it. Man hour is equal to money. So are we as a corporate heads, decision makers, and when we call ourselves as HR BPs or HR business partners, are we having the intention to incorporate and design policies which can actually make sure that mental wellness 1 hour a day would be assured to every employee on the cost of employers? I think is that kind of view that you are making or developing or propagating your practices to, but that is something that I want to understand.
So, my experience with Siemens, or whatever I have done with Siemens, is I would say the credit goes to my then manager, or the head of the
Mm-hmm.
organization, head of the business group, who hired me, who trusted me.
Right.
And he was somebody who was not, um, of course, an intellectual person, but he was also very comfortable with the psychology. He was a voracious reader. He was, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
having same knowledge as any PhD in psychology will have. So that kind of
Will
a
have. Right.
leadership
Mm.
helped me to flourish, and did a lot of experiments back then, so I think that kind of leadership is necessary in today's environment, where there has to be some vision about the future. Because this is my complaint, and if you see my writing and if you see my blogs, I always ask HR people to look at the education system what we have currently. You have mentioned about addiction.
Right.
They
Right.
have no idea, the
Mm.
students, even in Pune, because you are from Pune. So students in Pune, the kind of addiction is, they are in the grip of addiction. And
Ramping up. Right.
if young
Right.
minds who are going to build this country are, like you said, if they are addicted, if they are weak, basically weak, how would they survive in this AI and all those things? And can government and can corporate, say confidently that, this is a kind of human resource where we will build that 5 trillion economy? No. I think the situation in the, college campuses, university campuses, even schools, they are scary. Situation is scary. I mean, if you
Right.
go and check with the parents,
Very true.
you just do some R&D and check. So you have to be realistic now. I mean, HR is very, they speak very sophisticated kind of English. They behave in a very, in a manner that, uh, something which is sometimes very, superficial. I mean, they have no idea about what kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
or they
Mm-hmm.
are not acknowledging it properly, that these are the real pain
Mm-hmm.
areas where we have to work. And same is
Mm-hmm.
applicable to corporate, that there is a report recently by, I guess, Apollo Hospital, that half of the India, I am saying half
Mm-hmm.
of the Indian population is sick.
49%. Right.
Is sick.
It's like
Either they are,
49%, what I
yeah,
have read
either
about.
they are,
Yeah.
they are dealing with hypertension or diabetes, or they are even vulnerable to cancer. They are dealing with, many of them are dealing with the I know
Right.
one case from my
That's
circle, who had gone through cancer recently. He is like 50, 51 year old gentleman from a good software firm. But it was shocking for me to know that, he is dealing with cancer. So, and all
mm.
these things are because of, again, the negative emotions, the stress part coming out of negative emotions.
Right.
And why
Mm.
these negative emotions are there? Because
Mm.
people are living under fear, they are living under insecurity. So
Right.
creating
Mm.
psychologically safe workplaces where people can feel safe, physically, psychologically, they will
Mm-hmm.
work with motivation, they will happily come to work, and they will have more commitment. They will do
Mm-hmm.
more than what they are supposed to do. If you want to create that kind of a workspace, then I think you should prioritize the mental wellness of your employees. Does that answer
Mm-hmm.
your question?
Yes, definitely. I there would be a lot of facet towards it, because when we entirely put this responsibility onto HR, definitely HR would be a bridge in terms of propagating the message that is there, or the getting the pulse of the organization in terms of how the well-beings are. But being into the system, being communicating with an HR activity, we always want to look good on our report. What I feel like, even HR would be pushing certain things, because in my previous organization, when I used to do posh tradings, awareness about posh, and sorry for that. So in that particular scenario, my manager used to say that we are zero tolerant to posh. We don't have any cases that is there. So why you are even sending that particular report? Just say zero cases, zero cases, zero cases. But I have seen the friction. I have seen a certain kind of shunning of certain opinions, because posh is not only about sexual harassment. It is also about creating a hostile environment. So if you create a hostile environment, which inculcate bullying of certain part of employees coming from a different section of India, different creed of India, different caste of India. So there are a lot of undercurrents that are there. Because I don't want to sugarcoat anything, because as an HR, I know these are boiling issues. But when we are looking at the objective of India to become the next superpower, I think we have to directly face those issues. This is what the diagnosis of Indian mental health is, of the corporate. This is why we are biased. We are making certain kind of unhealthy practices, which are really drawing the talent out of the corporate. And when I was listening to Patrick, and he had made that point that, let's say, if a talent into the organization has seen this kind of discrimination, and he walks out of the organization and he forms a parallel company,
Mm.
how how benefit it is for the organization, who have just the company who have just he has just left, and he has a parallel company with you. So what you're trying to do is, where we are trying to, as an HR, we are trying to incorporate or make a kind of an inclusive environment, a kind of collaborative environment. But the entire intention of the management and people around is there, they're trying to make it a different parallel. So the thing is, like, it is the same thing. It is the same misalignment of sales and marketing and operations. Sales and marketing over promise and production under deliver it. So it is always like that, because the ground reality, as you said, there are a lot of euphemism. We say a lot of many things, flowery things. Okay, this is what we have to do. This is what we have to do. Has to be done. And when we talk about inclusion that is there, and we only see at third gender. Okay, but I see there was one podcast, that was the first podcast, and Aparna had made a very valid point. Women in their 50s who are facing menopause. Okay. Now, for those women, what kind of cushion, mental health cushion, you as in corporate are making? You are done for, maternity benefits are there, everything is there. But what for the women who have reached to that age? And definitely all those women who have reached at the age of 50, they are into leadership, or they are into very key role, in that particular hierarchy. So as an organization, what kind of elements you are utilizing in order to address those particular issues? And I think if you have a conversation with the management team, they would go blank. They won't have any kind of preparation for that. Even HR won't, they would be blank. But I won't blame them. I won't be someone who want to bash HR and want to bash management. I think they are so engrossed into their core competencies that they are not able to develop the competencies that are required to see this problem in a different light. This is where people like you and me would be coming in picture, who would be actually pointing to the real issues. So whenever you are pushing 70 hours of work as a policy, how adversely it is going to affect in every sphere of a human life. It is not going to affect him on work front, but on personal, physical, sociologically, family wise also. The entire family disruption would be there, because the person is not able to spend time, is not having the energy. What kind of time, love, affection, and attachment would be created once the person is drenched out or drained out of those particular vitality from him? So the question remains. I think the major question that what I feel like uh, is somewhere we have to make sure that the management itself has to be treated first. They have to be diagnosed, because I think mental wellness is more of a top to down approach. It is not down to top approach. That has always been there, and we every HR would always see that there is a limitation. The HR would be a person who can't do anything. It is like the daughter-in-law of the house. She don't have the power. She has to do everything, but she doesn't have any power in terms of making decisions. So I think now HR has become business partners, but I think once it becomes a very crucial decision makers in terms of mental wellness as well.
Mhm.
This is where the dynamics of HR being a powerful role in advocating mental wellness would be very much evident into society. Rather than bashing HR that HR is supposed to be trained, no, the management has to be trained. So it has to be a top to down approach. What I feel like. So how well you do you agree with this particular outlook? Because I think we are experiencing that particular part, and you might be having the same experience as well.
Yes, 100%. I guess leadership is the one who is responsible for cultivating the healthy culture where people feel safe, and HR is kind of an instrument who can drive this change. This is
Right,
what I feel.
right. That's
And
true.
like I
That's
said in my previous answer, my manager in Siemens, in my during my tenure in Siemens, he was the one who, he was the one who. I mean, I can't imagine whatever I have done in Siemens without him. The
mm,
way he supported me, sometime directly, sometime indirectly, so I think that kind of leadership is necessary to develop a healthy culture where people feel safe, and people can voice their opinion. People are about females, we said, female leadership. So and but this kind of leadership is not something that you know um, that can be developed through MDP programs. Again, I'm not sugarcoating things, but it has to be the part of your
right.
personality, part of your upbringing, the way you
Mm,
have been brought up. So it's very difficult to change someone overnight, uh, even
mm,
if he's in a key leadership role. But if we don't know how he or she has reached that position.
mm,
And power also corrupts. So when you have a
mm.
power,
Yeah, yeah,
the empathy is
definitely.
low. That is the
Right.
contradiction about being in a leadership position, because whenever you are in powerful position, your empathy actually goes down. You look at the
Right.
people in a very different way. So someone with that kind of empathetic outlook towards people
Mm,
and towards organization, I think that kind of leadership is necessary to develop well-being culture in the organization. But our the society, because people come from, like, workers come from society, so our society, the upbringing part, play crucial role, in fact the major role in shaping up the leadership of any organization.
mm,
So I guess that is important, because yeah, you can convince them up to certain extent, maybe by talking about business, but it has to come from within. That is what I feel. I don't know if
mm.
you're happy with the answer or.
No, I think this is something that I'm not expecting a complete answer. At least I would be what I was expecting the discussion about this particular part, because I think most of the discussion ends with like the system is there, system is not going to progress, or any of the efforts that we are making, it is not going to make the break, or it is not going to make any difference. But I think there is one fallacy that everybody works with, and that fallacy is called as nirvana fallacy. Now, what Nirvana fallacy talks about, it talks about, I think it's a black and white fallacy. What we talk about, this or that, or this or nothing. So every time we look at any solution, we want it to be such a solution that it resolve everything. But any kind of efforts that we are making, like the awareness that you and me are making, the topics that we are discussing, the tabooed issue that we are bringing in this particular forum to discuss, actually this is 1% progress towards the mental appealment of all the people that is there. So none of the efforts are going west. People usually, every person in management also, right? What would happen if I make a 2% or 4% of contribution of budget to mental wellness? What would be the ROI? And I think it's very hard for you and me to make an ROI into that chart and present it to the management team, saying that this is the ROI of the stress management part. Now definitely, when I was talking to Patrick, and he was talking about that we are able to map 9 biomarkers which would be talking about stress and everything. I think the pre and the post of mental wellness programs would definitely give us that particular kind of authority to give us a kind of clear picture that this was the pre-evaluation, this is the post-evaluation. So that is there on the way, and AI is helping us a lot in making those particular in all the field. Because when I was discussing with Patrick that there is no solution, there won't be any, because I think employment assessment programs, services that are there into European countries are not, now they are dwindling down, because I think every services has their own life cycle. EAS, like employee assessment program, was there in 1950s to 2000, that it was like booming and growing right now. But now we as a psychologist or people who are working with organizational development have to think about that, how we going to inculcate AI into our methodology, where assessment or diagnosis that would be there. And as you said earlier, that it should not be done in one of the MDP's program, because I have seen a lot of 16K tests, the Gallup test, all those tests would come in play, and they will just give you a kind of a parameter. This is what you have to do. This is what your personality is. It's just like an astrological kundli thing. It is nothing more than that. Because I feel like if you know that it is there, if you know even your blood reports, if you know that you are high in cholesterol, and then also you're eating something that is fried and high in cholesterol, it is not going to help you out. What is the corrective method? Even to enhance your positivity, what is the corrective efforts? Are you making any kind of reading, training, enhancing your skill? Is your company giving you that particular kind of opportunity? Because I feel like this is where it comes back to the shoulder of the company, and companies have to realize, because understand 70% of their time, employees time, is spent with the company and organization of their life. Wake I'm talking about the wake hour. So wake hour of your life goes in associating with the company. I think the major responsibility falls on the shoulder of the organization. And who is going to profit more with a workforce which is mentally calm, focused, and energetic? Definitely the employer. So I think there is a no-brainer kind of a question, why employers and management are not putting or pulling up their socks and getting into this particular mental wellness sphere as soon as possible, and making sure that the technological implementations are also there, so that we will get a clearer picture, rather than just having there definitely programs are to be there. There is supposed to be a human interaction, there's supposed to be human intervention when we are talking about human development altogether. But I think the fast trackness, or the fastness of this particular entire progress that would be there, would be definitely while by integrating AI, by integrating technological aspects, and making the environment more cordial and more privacy driven. Why I'm so talking about privacy driven? Because in my previous discussion, because my dad was working with the army backend, and my mom was working with state government. So in state government army, they have a different approach to deal with mental wellness. Like in state government, you will have that particular vipassana where Yashoda comes in play, and all those. I think in Pune, if you have ever been, Yashoda is one of the center, and Vipassana center is also there for state government employees. And it was not a diagnosis. It was just one of the band-aid approach. If you think that that particular person look sad and he's not up to the mark, put him into Vipassana. But I think actual diagnosis has to be required, but people are afraid of that, because once you are diagnosed with depression, bipolar, or anything like of that, the entire system would turn against you. It won't be a kind of system which would accept you and try to heal you. So I think that is also one of the awareness that has to put into a lot of leaders, that somewhere we have to make sure that our organizations are not becoming a machine which creates psychopaths. So that is
Hmm.
something that I really want organization to make sure that at the end of their services, after 40, 50 years of working with your organization, are we going to return him back to the society, to his family, a psychopath or a person who is driven? So
Very, very
this is
important
something,
point.
yeah, that is something that is a very grave situation that we are dealing with, because I don't know how are you going to deal with the kind of internet addiction, the kind of addiction part that is going on. So internet addiction and social media addiction and self-image and all those things are totally different giants and monsters we have to deal with. I think the top to down approach has to be taken in order to make management, the managers, leaders, all aware of this particular thing and work on their mental awareness as well by themselves. So that is one thing. so so I
So,
will start with the question. What I will
okay.
do is I will start with one question. So the question is, how can company ensure their mental wellness program are inclusive of? नहीं, ये तो I think that is not there. Okay. Okay. What policies or practices can company implement to promote a sense of psychological safety and minimize workplace mental wellness? That is something that we can take, and then we will come to the end, where I will ask to just give us a kind of a sum of a brief about what you suggest as a psychologist, organizational psychologist, to the organization, to the employee, and to the education institutes that are there, or the finishing schools. Will have that particular understanding. Why I'm taking this particular question, because as an HR, when we are hiring any B school students, are we looking, or any management trainees, are we looking for some of those elements which would make sure that these people would be better in managing their mental health? Are those skills developed in them? Like what kind of practices, what kind of basic hygiene kind of thing, where we talk about what kind of nutrition are they supposed to take, what kind of mental errors that they're supposed to avoid. Okay. So those kind of things, how rational thinking or critical thinking is important, are the people equipped with those particular things? So it is not only technical skills that has to be calibered, or not only attributes, also the mental resilience skill set are something that we have to calibrate as well. So are those people equipped with that? So are there any kind of tools which companies can utilize in order to filter out their management trainees based upon how well they can be mentally, or what kind of training programs that we can do it together? So this is where you have to cross sell yourself as a consultant and me as a company, that this is how we are going to come up with the services which we can uh, uh, work together. Okay. Am I making it clear how it is going to go? No.
Yes. So your first question was about creating a psychologically safe workplaces, and
Yes.
I think Corona has taught us the biggest lesson in
Yeah.
mental
Are we?
health.
Sorry. Sorry. Are we starting it? Are we like? Are we
I think I
starting with
have
the
started
recording?
recording part.
Okay, you started. No, no, recording nahi. I recording the fine, but at least the answer to it means I will ask the question, then you will start, so that I
You
will
can
have that
ask question. Go ahead,
continuity.
ask question.
Okay. Okay. Great. So 1, 2, 3, start. So Roshali, coming at the final section of our podcast, I want to ask, like, what what kind of policy or practice that company can implement to promote a sense of psychological safety and minimizing work stress related thing or burnouts? What are your views and takes on that?
Okay. A workplace can be psychologically safe only if its culture, which is a set of
Hmm.
behavior displayed by the management, the leadership, and of course, HR is also included, is making employee feel safe.
Right.
Okay. So building a culture where well-being is the priority, employees' health is the priority, employees' overall uh, sense of achievement and satisfaction, I would say, is the priority. That should be the um, first step for creating a psychologically safe workplace. So it all starts with
Right.
the processes, it's all start with the, so this well-being should be part of the culture. So
Mm-hmm.
your working hours, your team interaction, the communication part, uh, will be, plan accordingly. Because if you do not want to
Mm-hmm.
stress your employee, you will not call him or her after say 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, or after working hours. So that should be made
Right.
mandatory,
Right.
there has to be provision
Mm-hmm.
when somebody is not feeling well emotionally or physically, a provision for work from home. There has to be, so these are
Right.
preventive steps which can be part of the organizational culture, if they want to make well-being
Right.
of the employee as a priority. So it should be reflected
Right.
in every step of the organization, including the long-term planning for the future. Even if they are
Right.
laying off, if they are planning to lay off certain employees, certain set of people, in that case also,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there should be a provision where
Career
those
assessment
employees,
cell. Yeah.
yeah, those employees will be given some help, not only the money part but also some career guidance, skill development part. So and the confidence building part. So even if they are losing this job, maybe in 3 4
Right.
months they can find something
Mm-hmm.
better. So there is something called as
Right.
retrenchment counseling. So if somebody has lost the job, then the confidence is shaken. Even if the skills are in place, the confidence is shaken.
Mm-hmm.
So that confidence building and help to find
Mm-hmm.
another job should be also part of that severance package, I guess. So so there
Right.
has to be, there has to be I mean there has should be effort inside the organization when employees is inside the organization. And even if he or she is leaving the organization, then he or she should not
Mm-hmm.
feel psychologically unsafe. So I hope I could answer your question.
Great. Yes, yes, it was there. I would just want to add up two things that is there. Apart from having a retrenchment uh, process, even the exit interview that is there, I think it is something that is missed out by HR a lot. And sometimes the feedbacks are not even taken in that particular way that has to be taken. But I think as an HR also, we have to have that particular trust built in the role itself, because I think most of the exit interview process is really good because there are a lot of uh, what I can say insight an employee can give about the system that is there, because it always happens when you are breaking up with a relationship, you tend to give a lot of honest replies or honest feedback about that particular person so that he can improve. Very few of them do it because nobody want to burn their bridges. That's what we say in corporate, that you don't have to burn your bridges because you never know you have to come back to on that particular bridge. But I think in a very healthy and accepting manner, if there are certain issues which are looking behind or which are like undercurrent of the organization, like the management teams are exploiting their powers. Is there any kind of mispractices or malpractices that are happening within the organization that I have seen a certain kind of phobia that has been developed in hiring a certain religion specific people in the organization in a multinational company. I have seen it in within my tenure itself. So I think there are a lot of elements that happens because it is there are elements which start with a micro expression or a certain kind of grind or certain kind of disagreement. But I think there is certain kind of mental errors or mental biases that person develop, because of which this kind of elements would be there in your system, and definitely they would be the next uh, you know uh, epidemic in terms of having a lot of people leaving your organization. Because what I feel like, there is a lot of on LinkedIn, there are a lot of posts that circulate that you don't leave your job, you leave your managers. Okay. So there is a lot of things, because people, I think the environment is entirely based upon how you make that particular person feel. And as you rightly said, making a psychologically safe environment is something that is far more important than giving only facilities which are going to pamper your physical self. I think bare minimum is fine, but I think psychologically safe environment is something that is a need of the hour, because most of your employees in coming future would be working from home. Most of the employees would be working hybrid, and some of the employee would be working on field and all other things. So you are, as an employer, you would be dealing a lot of varieties of connect and communication patterns that would be there in your employment. As an employer, as an HR, I think people already say that a lot of our jobs are going to be taken by AI. But I think a lot of our jobs which can be automated, wherein human intervention is not required, that will be taken by AI. But I think wherever you as a human would be more required, those are the jobs which are going to flourish a lot. So this is where HR or the HR audience who are listening to this particular podcast, if you are interested into human psychology, human motivation, mental wellness, or how engagement, that is called as employee engagement as a bigger umbrella. So how you can be an important element or an important person or skilled enough to propagate that particular programs into upcoming employers, because there would be a lot of startups, there would be a lot of companies which would be expanding themselves, there would be a lot of employees who would be working into different time zones. It is already happening, but it would be very rampant in every sector if you are actually targeting 5 million economy, $5 trillion economy. So in that scenario, we are going to require a lot of efforts in making our the most important factor of productivity, that is employees, and happy employees. I would say happy, mentally strong employees and engaged employees. Those are the people who are going to make difference in the upcoming age of AI. We have actually talked about a lot many things that would make sense to a lot many people. If they apply those, definitely a certain kind of incremental changes would be there into the mental wellness of the workplace. And even if you're stumbling upon any of those areas where challenges are occurring, I think Rushali and me would be there on our LinkedIn pages. I would be putting in LinkedIn link of Rushali's profile and my profile. Rushali is very active in the sphere of mental wellness for employees in corporate, as well as locally, as well as throughout Pan India. And even she is also handling certain clients which are outside of India. So internationally, she is also active. So anybody who feels like there are certain challenges which can be handled professionally, definitely you can reach out to Rushali. You can reach out to me. If there are any questions related to this podcast where you feel like there are certain kind of more clarity is required, or any suggestion that is there which can enhance the entire approach towards mental wellness in corporate, your our forum is entirely open. Our email IDs and our YouTube channel comment box are also there, where you can put in your comments, and we can definitely make sure that we will answer it. If you're not getting it answered, definitely send your emails to our email address, which would be there into the comment box. We will definitely answer those. And Rushali's link to LinkedIn profile would be also provided, plus mine. So we are there in order to make this particular walkthrough from an disengaged employee to a engaged employee, which is mentally strong, who is engaged and he is productive. And definitely any kind of precaution is better than the cure. So I want all the leaders to make that particular efforts and make sure that all those effort counts for your employees and for yourself, and making our work environment far more better for everybody. So thank you guys. Thank you, Rushali, for
Thank
being on
you.
this
Thank you,
podcast.
Abhijit.
And
Thank you.
definitely we'll keep in touch. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Have a lovely day
Thank you.
ahead.
You too. Bye.